city's demographic and population is changing. We are more and more living alone. Worldwide, by 2030, 2/3 of the world's population will be in global cities. So the question is, how do we adapt our housing supply to this shift in how people live?
Okay.
In New York, everybody has a story
It's 90 square feet.
about when they moved to New York, they either squeezed into some illegal sublet or they subletted from a sublet from a proper lease, so therefore they were invisible.
So this is my place. It's 78 square feet.
Very few people can prove that their income is 3 times their monthly rent. Very few people can afford their own apartments. And so the premise was, how do we make it easier to get your foot into New York? This project, it's part of the bigger picture about the city just looking at this data and thinking we should respond.
How large is the space?
It's probably 320.
Okay.
They range from 265 to 370 square feet. The smallest dishwasher. When we shrink an apartment down from 400 square feet to an average of 300, how do we fit everything in? Fridge. We are not allowed to shrink the kitchen and bathroom beyond what is required for accessibility. So there's all sorts of codes about the length of that counter. That is the absolute minimum length of counter that you need to have. There's all sorts of codes about the clearance from either side of the stove, either side of the sink, the clearance in front, etc. So this is pretty much the most compact that you can do for a kitchen by code. Same with the bathroom. So what we are shrinking is the sleeping and living space. And so all the activity of sleeping, eating, living, lounging has to kind of all be done in the same space. And so with this or any kind of reconfigurable furniture configuration, this one is pretty good because you don't need to make your bed. You can just tuck it all back in, and the bed is replaced by the sofa underneath. What is always tricky in New York apartments is storage for clothing, particularly. The ceiling height is quite good. In fact, it's much taller than what you normally get in a minimum apartment. Typically 8 feet is the minimum. This is 9'8", and that's really what New Yorkers learn how to do, to go vertical with their storage. So something like this just helps with the ergonomics of going vertical with your closet. So you can have 2 closet racks, it could fit. So all of this is designed so that all the kind of overlapping functions of living, storage, etc. is happening in this space. So there's storage here and there's storage above the bathroom. So in 9'8", there's enough room for storage for your luggage, whatever your more inactive storage, because the bathroom only has to be 8 feet. So that's how we're kind of squeezing in more space. And then this is, oops, not really maximized, but that's the proper closet. This project is modular construction. Because it's a very small site, we really had to try to fit as many units in as possible. Even though we're shrinking the square footage of the apartment, we still have to comply with a lot of regulations about minimum size of the kitchen, the counter length, of living space, dimension, right? So the tolerances that we were working with were within 1/8 of an inch, which is really not possible with traditional construction. It really had to be precise. So basically all of the kind of fine-tuning was done in the factory to really get it to be very, very exact. small things like you need this smoke baffle by code. This is typically drywall construction. If it were drywall construction, it would be maybe 3 inches. If it were 3 inches, this cabinet door would not open. If the cabinet door doesn't open, then we would have to increase the kitchen because this is a minimum dimension from this counter to that wall. So this is 8 foot minimum. If we had to increase that, we would lose a whole line of units and then the project wouldn't be viable. So all of it had to be this very intricately and tightly fit like Swiss clock because it had to be so precise. So when they arrive from the factory, everything that you see except for the wood floor, the kitchen appliances, and the glass backsplash, everything is already in place. So the jip, the door, the windows, the plumbing fixtures, the light fixtures, and the first coat of paint is already there. So when we were first invited to join the developer on this competition, we actually were not sure because the description of the competition read, this is about possibly shrinking the average size of a New York apartment. Of course, we are all very sensitive to what 400 square feet is. And so at first we thought, do we want to be shoving people into smaller shoe boxes? But when we understood that it was in response to a housing crisis, to the fact that our housing market is out of sync with the demographics, we were inspired to act. It's not about this kind of expressing this little Lego-like stacking. It's about the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. So all the apartments have these sliding balcony doors. This is called a Juliet balcony, which is a fancy term for not really a balcony. We want you to feel like you're part of the street, you're part of a larger story, to feel that your home is not just the space inside the 4 walls. Your home is also the salon. It includes the salon on the roof.
Yes. All right, thank you so much.
It includes the cafe that will open up on the ground floor. It includes the gym on the ground floor. So it's an idea of a dispersed house. What is inside your apartment is very small and very compact. But elsewhere in the building, you will find everything that you normally find in a home. It's just dispersed and it's shared. So this is the salon. It's just a much bigger living space, dining space. You could reserve it to have dinner parties here. There's an actual oven, slightly bigger kitchen. This is a side table or your home office table, which could also become your very large dining table. It actually has 5 leaves, but we'll set it up for a more intimate dinner party. Possibly in your typical setup, you would just eat your dinner at the table, at the couch, or this is always there. So I think in reality there's a more minimal movement and there's kind of small daily flexibility and then more radical transformations once in a while. This, I guess, would be for Thanksgiving dinner. But you'd have to get everything out of the fridge first. This is a table that is kind of a 3-in-1. So it goes from coffee table height to to dining table height for, let's say, 4 people. And then it can also expand for bigger parties and basically double. I think you can fit 6 people around this. There's probably an optimum setup for everybody that would involve the minimal amount of moving. Right? I mean, sofa beds are, the typical sofa bed is a pain in the butt because you have to make your bed.
Yeah.
This one is great because you don't have to make your bed. Small architecture now. Which is only in German. We all dream about bigger space. And so we asked ourselves, if we are shrinking the size of the apartment, what should we give back? And so this is part of what we give back. A really functional and flexible layout so that all the aspects of living can occur. We want to give back in terms of the ceiling height so that in terms of the spatial volume, we're not actually reducing it that much. We only reduced it by 10%. We reduced the footprint by 25%, but the cubic volume is only reduced by 10%. And then we give back in terms of the light and air. We specifically didn't want to have balconies because that cuts down on the light and air. You literally feel like you're in the trees. And so this is really important, and this is well beyond what is required. So this street is technically a street, but that is owned by the Department of Transportation, but it is managed by parks. And so it closes at night. So it's extremely quiet at night. The name of the project now is Carmel Place, but when we were working on the project, it was called My Micro New York. And the idea behind that title is that in this chaotic city, that you have your own pocket of domesticity that really feels like it's your own pocket of intimacy. We're always thinking about how does the small add up to large? What is the micro to macro relationship? And so even if the apartment is small, it's yours and you belong in the city.